Do you want to know how to discipline a child with autism? I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach all over the world about parenting, good communication, how to build strong family bonds, child development, and neurodiversities, all through the lens of the principle self-government. And in this video, we're talking about disciplining an autistic child. In this video, we're going to be talking about some of those difficult autistic behaviors, what they mean, what we need to learn from them, and then some gentle ways that we can go about disciplining and parenting the autistic child so that they actually take steps toward improving their behavior all on their own in a self-governed way. And then we're going to talk about a success story that hopefully gives you some hope as you are disciplining the autistic child in your life. And at the very end of this video, you're not going to want to miss, I actually have an autistic discipline toolkit that you can use starting today. Every autistic person is different, so the behaviors are different. People are at different places on the spectrum. There's high functioning, low functioning. Some autistic people are more verbal than others. Some have incredible anxiety, while others don't experience that much anxiety, and they're actually a little bit more laid back, even though they still like some things very predictable. I would say the predictability is usually one of those key things that across the board autistic people like. In fact, if we're going to be honest, who doesn't like a little bit of predictability in their lives? Because it makes everything seem better for all of us if we kind of know what's coming down the line. So what types of behaviors might we be dealing with? Well, we might be dealing with a person who gets angry and yells, a person who starts to get overly emotional and dramatic. They start to get violent sometimes, maybe even to the point of biting or hitting other people. By the way, I have a whole video on this channel all about biting, so you may want to see that if that's something that's of interest to you. So why do these types of behaviors happen? Well, oftentimes it's because the person is maybe sensory overloaded, or they might just not know how to get your attention or to get their problem solved. They want to feel understood, but they're not actually knowing the best way to go about that, usually because of lack of skill development. So we all develop our own internal skills. An autistic person is no different. Their brain tries to help them navigate things that are going on around them and put them in a place that feels comfortable and nice. And if they don't have a skill for what to do, when things don't feel comfortable and nice, then they feel a little bit uneasy. And I think everyone does to a certain extent, but if you're autistic, it might feel a little bit more acute than it would for just the, run-of-the-mill person who's not dealing with that neurodiversity. So when a person is in a place where they are feeling a little bit uneasy, this is going to come out in more anxious or impulsive outbursts. They might start shaking things or hitting things or clicking things. Those types of things might get in the way of their processing. You might be trying to talk to them, but because they're now focused on what they're going to do because of the problem that they're experiencing, they might have a hard time focusing in on what it is that you're saying. This is when people sometimes do the worst thing, which is just get aggressive with the autistic person, or even worse than that, give up. Why is giving up worse? Because when an autistic person is going out of control, if you give up on them, they have learned nothing. They haven't learned that that's not okay. They haven't learned that there's a better way. They haven't received any skill development or any training. And really, that's what they need, and that's what they want. They feel very secure the more skills that they learn, just like anybody else. So we have to make sure that if we're the adults, we're the parents in their life, then we are giving them the skills that they need, because people don't know what they don't know. And this is when they end up more anxious and making behavioral decisions that they regret afterward. I want to share a little success story with you before we get into the discipline strategies that I have as recommendations. So I had a foster daughter who was autistic, and she had some pretty out of control rage type behaviors when she would get overwhelmed. As soon as the processing became too much, she started to shut down and she would start to hit or thrash or pace or damage things. And this was something that we had to try to help her with, especially because sometimes she also would just vindictively do aggressive behaviors at other people just because that was her go-to for solving her problems. Maybe she wasn't even anxious at those times. That was just now her behavioral. So we worked closely with her on the 4 basic skills of self-government. We taught her how to follow instructions from us so that she could also learn how to give herself instructions and follow instructions from herself. We taught her how to accept no answers from us and from life, and how to give herself no answers and accept those. We taught her how to accept consequences, which are just part of life. And we taught her how to disagree with us appropriately, how to pause, get herself calm, and express herself in a way where she could be understood and not have to get angry or have some of these outbursts that she would have. Now, it took her some time. She was 17 years old when she came to us, so we were going to be one of her last placements. But I have to say, she made some incredible progress. Within just a few days of learning the 4 basic skills, she felt a little bit more at ease. She fell back into old habits because she had some pretty deep ruts in her brain, taking her to the back brain pretty quickly. But she learned to stop herself over time. Stop, pause, what skill do I need? We gave her some cue statements, such as, check your calmness. And she would stop, check her calmness. Then we would say, what skill do you need? She'd think about her skills. And then she'd say, I'm going to disagree appropriately. And then she would use her disagree appropriately skill. So she spent more time getting praised for stopping herself, using her skills, than she did for getting corrected. But sometimes we did need to do some corrections. When it was time to correct her or discipline her in some way because she wasn't listening to the cues, she didn't care about them, or she did want to hurt another person, which occasionally did happen because she had noticed that she gets this really nice endorphin release, this adrenaline rush that happens when she gets angry and jumps into a power struggle. Sometimes she just wanted that rush. Now, do we want to teach her to just do that and that that's okay? No. She's not going to socially succeed as soon as she turns 18 and she's now put off on her own. We needed to teach her to rein that in, which meant that we had to do corrections. So we took steps to correct her every single time that she didn't choose to get to calmness and use some of the steps in her 4 basic skills. When we do a correction for discipline, it starts with a description instead of a reaction. When parents react to another person's behavior, usually they get sucked into a power struggle. So one of the things that you can remember the most is not to react. Instead, describe what you see. Just now, I gave you a no answer about playing that game on the computer, and you looked at me and your eyes were narrow and you stuck out your chin like this and you started to yell. So that means you were not having a calm face, voice, and body, which is one of our steps to our skill of accepting a no answer. I was giving you a no answer about playing the computer game and you weren't accepting it. When you choose not to accept a no answer, that actually gets you in a bad mood. What you should have done instead is you should have looked at me, kept a calm face, voice, and body, and if you wanted to talk about playing a game a little bit longer, you could have disagreed appropriately about that and then dropped the subject. Since you chose not to do that though, you have earned an extra chore. Okay. And then they say, okay, I praise them. We practice it the way, replaying the scenario, work on a couple of other example scenarios. They get praised for all of those practices. Then she goes and does her extra chore, checks back, and she gets praised again. Being corrected can actually be a positive thing. It doesn't have to feel like a negative thing. And it wasn't for my foster daughter. She had incredible success. In fact, because of her success and the success of many other foster children who were neurodiverse who came to my home, people in the world started asking me to teach how to self-govern yourself as parents and as children. And I would love to teach you more about that. I actually have, as I promised, a type of a toolkit for you. The toolkit that I have that is a great discipline toolkit is my TSG parenting course. If you go to my website, teachingselfgovernment.com, then you can learn more about how to correct, how to handle the really out of control moments, because we're just scratching the surface here. What skills do you need? What skills do they need? So that everybody can understand each other and thereby be more calm. Go to teachingselfgovernment.com, go to the store and find the TSG parenting course today. And if you want a discount on it, then type in the discount code TSG Deals. You'll get 20% off that course. I hope it helped you. It is a great autistic discipline toolkit.